Long before mirrors of silver and glass, before the world spoke of creams or perfumes, there was Egypt, a kingdom where beauty was not vanity, but divinity. Beneath the burning sun and the whispering palms of the Nile, men and women alike sought harmony with the gods through the art of adornment. They believed the body was a sacred temple, a reflection of the soul, and to care for it was to honor the gods themselves. In marble courtyards and reed huts alike, fragrances of honey, myrrh, and crushed petals drifted through the air, blending with the sound of the river and the pulse of the drums. The air shimmered with secrets, ancient, fragrant, eternal. The beauty rituals of Egypt were not born from luxury, but from belief that the skin could hold light, that the scent of a flower could calm the spirit, that immortality could be captured drop by drop in jars of alabaster. But as centuries passed, the secrets faded, lost beneath the sands, buried in tombs, whispered only by time itself. And yet, the echoes remain. Tonight, we uncover them, 15 forgotten beauty secrets of ancient Egypt, rituals carved not just in history, but in the very essence of what it means to be human, to seek radiance, to defy time, and to remember that every breath, every touch, is a connection to the divine. The story begins where the sun never dies, along the eternal river of life. 1. The milk baths of Cleopatra, the eternal silk of the Nile. In the heart of Alexandria, beneath marble pillars and silk canopies, the last queen of Egypt would descend into a bath that shimmered like liquid moonlight. The scent of honey mingled with the faint tang of warm milk, while rose petals floated lazily across the surface, each one a tiny offering to her own legend. Cleopatra's milk baths were not mere indulgence, they were ritual, alchemy, a secret language spoken between the body and the divine. The milk, rich in lactic acid, softened her skin until it gleamed like alabaster under torchlight. Servants whispered that her skin glowed so luminously it seemed lit from within, as if the goddess Isis herself had kissed it. But few knew the full truth of this ritual. The milk was drawn not from ordinary cows, but from sacred goats kept in hidden gardens along the Nile, fed on dates and figs, their milk believed to carry the vitality of the gods. As she bathed, Cleopatra would inhale deeply, feeling the warmth of the liquid embrace her, listening to the faint hum of musicians playing flutes somewhere beyond the chamber. To her, this was more than beauty, it was preservation, a defiance of time, a way to command eternity itself. The aroma of honey, the cool petals, the sigh of rippling milk against her skin, all merged into a single, hypnotic symphony. Centuries later, travelers would still speak of her scent lingering in the air long after her death, the fragrance of immortality, born in the quiet ripples of a milk bath beneath the Egyptian stars. 2. The blue lotus oil, fragrance of the gods. There was a flower that grew only where the Nile's waters ran deep and slow, its petals unfolding with the first kiss of dawn, the blue lotus. Its scent was unlike any other, sweet, hypnotic, and yet tinged with something ethereal, as though the gods themselves exhaled through its bloom. Ancient Egyptian women treasured this flower not just for its beauty, but for the secret it carried. When pressed into oil, it became a potion of youth, seduction, and divine favor. In the perfumed chambers of Thebes, artisans would grind the fragile petals into paste, blending them with frankincense, myrrh, and sesame oil until a deep, golden blue liquid emerged, shimmering like trapped twilight. To wear the oil was to awaken something ancient, a pulse that seemed to echo with the rhythm of the Nile itself. Pharaohs were anointed with it before coronations, lovers shared it in whispered ceremonies by moonlight. The scent lingered like memory, soft, warm, and yet eternal. For Egyptian women, dabbing it on their necks or wrists was an act of worship as much as adornment, a way to call forth the protection of Hathor, goddess of love and music. Legends told of a queen who wore it so often that when she died, her tomb smelled of lotus for a century, the fragrance refusing to fade. The oil was said to bring clarity, euphoria, even visions, a connection between mortal and divine, a fragrance so potent it could lift the soul beyond the bounds of flesh. In every drop of blue lotus oil lived the dream of Egypt itself, beautiful, mysterious, and eternal. 3. The red ochre of the desert, kiss of the sun god. Deep in the quarries beyond the Valley of Kings, where the wind howled across red cliffs, miners gathered a precious dust, ochre, the color of sunset and blood. Its powder was fine as silk, its hue fierce and radiant, and when mixed with animal fat or oil, it became the rouge of queens. Women in temples and palaces would apply it to their lips and cheeks, invoking the warmth of Ra, the sun god, to bless their skin. The scent was faintly metallic, earthy, the aroma of stone and sun. As fingers brushed it across smooth faces, the pigment caught the light, glinting like embers in the fire. Ochre was not just color, it was power, drawn from the earth's heart, worn as armor against age and mortality. Priests claimed that its redness repelled evil, while healers mixed it into salves to stop bleeding. The same pigment that adorned statues of gods also protected the living. Some said that the ochre carried whispers of the desert winds, that those who wore it felt their hearts beat stronger, their spirits rise higher. In the heat of noon, the pigment gleamed on the skin of queens and dancers alike, a symbol of life's fire burning within flesh. Long after the empire's fall, archaeologists would find jars of ochre still vibrant, as though the desert had kept them alive, a small defiance of time, a crimson echo of ancient beauty. 4. The scented smoke of myrrh, breath of immortality. The air inside the sanctuaries of ancient Egypt was thick with smoke, golden, resinous, and slow to rise. Myrrh, burned in bronze bowls, released its bittersweet perfume into the air, curling like ghostly ribbons toward the ceiling. Women sat within that haze, their skin absorbing its warmth, their hair and garments drinking in its scent. Myrrh was more than fragrance, it was medicine, protection, and prayer combined. The resin, drawn from thorny trees that bled like wounded flesh, was gathered by desert nomads and traded for gold. When mixed with oils and applied to the skin, myrrh preserved and purified, warding off disease and decay. Even the bodies of the dead were anointed with it, for the Egyptians believed myrrh could sweeten the passage to eternity. In the private chambers of queens, the burning of myrrh marked the beginning of every beauty ritual. The smoke clung to their hair, their skin, their very breath, creating an aura that lingered long after they had gone. The scent carried memories, the sound of water in the fountains, the whisper of linen garments, the hum of cicadas beyond the walls. It was said that myrrh could open hidden doors in the soul, bridging the mortal and divine. To smell it was to remember life, death, and the eternity between. In its sacred scent, ancient Egypt found its signature, a fragrance that refused to die. 5. The honey of the sun, golden elixir of youth. Honey in ancient Egypt was more than sweetness, it was sunlight solidified, a divine nectar born from the labor of sacred bees. Thick and golden, it flowed like molten amber, glistening as healers poured it into jars sealed with clay. Its scent was wild and floral, the essence of lotus and acacia groves mingled with the heat of the desert. Women spread it across their faces as masks, letting it tighten and glisten, the warmth of their breath turning it into a living glaze. Honey healed burns, softened wrinkles, and sealed wounds, it kept the flesh pure and the skin radiant. It was even placed in tombs as an offering, the gift of eternal sweetness to sustain the soul beyond death. But there were whispers of a deeper secret. Certain apothecaries added drops of crushed pearl or powdered gold to the honey, believing it captured the divine essence of Ra. Those who used it were said to glow faintly, as though kissed by sunlight. The honey mask became both medicine and magic, a ritual of renewal, where the skin drank in the energy of life itself. When the mask was washed away, the reflection in polished bronze revealed something otherworldly, a softness, a shimmer, a memory of the god's own touch. In honey, the Egyptians saw immortality, not as escape from death, but as the art of keeping beauty alive, forever radiant beneath the endless sun. 6. The henna of celebration, flame on the skin. In the humid evening air of Thebes, the fragrance of crushed henna leaves drifted through narrow courtyards, mingling with the music of flutes and the laughter of women preparing for a wedding. Henna, the deep red dye drawn from desert shrubs, was not merely decoration, it was protection, magic, and celebration, all pressed into a single symbol. The paste, when fresh, was green and earthy, smelling faintly of rain-soaked soil and wild herbs. Women ground it in stone bowls, mixing it with vinegar and fig juice until it thickened into a smooth, vibrant mud. Fingers dipped into the paste, drawing winding patterns across palms and feet, symbols of fertility, love, and divine blessing. As it dried, the paste cracked, leaving behind a rich, reddish stain that glowed under torchlight, like embers against bronze skin. The ritual was as much spiritual as it was aesthetic. To mark one's body in henna was to commune with the goddess Hathor herself, the patroness of beauty and joy. Some believed that the patterns acted as charms against misfortune, that each swirl of red carried prayers into the air. The scent of the drying paste clung to the skin for days, a reminder of that sacred night, of dance, of song, of transformation. When brides washed off the dried henna at dawn, their hands revealed a new self, radiant and renewed, ready to embrace the mysteries of womanhood. Henna, the flame on the skin, was the poetry of life itself, fleeting, passionate, and forever intertwined with love and divine grace. 7. The castor oil secret, the tears of the sun. Far from the temples and palaces, in quiet fields where reeds whispered in the wind, farmers gathered the seeds of the castor plant, small, marbled, and potent. From these seeds came a thick, glistening oil, golden and smooth as molten sunlight. Its scent was faintly nutty, warm, and earthy, the very aroma of life beneath the Nile's fertile soil. Women treasured it for its power to lengthen lashes, darken brows, and soothe dry skin. With a slender reed, they would dip into small alabaster jars, brushing the oil delicately across their lashes before sleep. By morning, the eyes shone deeper, framed in natural shadow, the gaze of a goddess carved in stone. But castor oil was more than beauty's secret, it was a bridge between medicine and magic. Healers used it to calm fever and ease childbirth pains, priests anointed it upon the foreheads of statues to awaken their spirits. It was said that Ra, the sun god, wept golden tears into the soil, from which the castor plant first grew, a gift of warmth and life for his children on earth. To touch the oil was to touch that divine tear, to feel the pulse of the sun itself beneath one's fingertips. Even centuries later, in tombs sealed from time, small jars of castor oil were found beside mirrors and combs, the immortal companions of queens and dancers alike. It was the oil of endurance, the golden fire that kept beauty alive even in the silence of eternity. 8. The coal of shadows, eyes of eternity. In the dim, flickering light of oil lamps, women bent over bronze mirrors, grinding soot and galena into fine black powder, coal, the sacred paint of eyes. The scent of smoke and stone filled the air as fingers dipped into the mixture, tracing smooth, dark lines along the lids. The result was mesmerizing, eyes framed like obsidian jewels, sharp as a hawk's, mysterious as the night sky. But this ritual went beyond beauty, it was survival. Coal shielded the eyes from the desert sun, repelled flies, and even protected against infection. The Egyptians believed that the dark pigment carried divine protection from the evil eye, a shadowed blessing from Horus himself. When applied, the sensation was cool, almost electric, and for a brief moment, it felt as though one had become both human and divine. The black lines extended outward, stylized into wings, symbols of power, freedom, and eternity. Both men and women wore it, pharaohs, priests, soldiers, and slaves. It unified them in a silent, shared ritual of vision, not only seeing the world but being seen by it. In tombs, tiny alabaster pots of coal were buried beside their owners, ensuring that even in the afterlife, their eyes would never close to beauty or truth. Coal was the art of transformation, a dark mirror in which mortals saw the reflection of gods. 9. The rose water of Memphis, breath of the morning. Before dawn, when the air over the Nile was cool and heavy with mist, women would walk through gardens filled with blooming roses, blossoms pale pink and crimson, opening to the first light of day. Workers gathered them gently, soaking the petals in shallow bronze basins of fresh water. As the sun rose, the petals released their perfume, infusing the water with their soul. The scent was pure, soft, and intoxicating, a breath of morning itself. This rose water was stored in slender glass bottles and used by noblewomen to cleanse the face, calm the skin, and refresh the spirit. To touch it was to feel coolness and grace, to smell it was to remember love. Egyptian poets wrote that the scent of roses could heal the heart, that even the gods paused to breathe it in. Some believed the water had magical power to reveal truth when sprinkled upon mirrors or poured over amulets. In the temples, priests washed sacred statues with it. In homes, wives perfumed their husbands' garments before battle. The droplets sparkled like dew as they fell upon the skin, leaving behind a whisper of sweetness, a promise of renewal. Rose water was more than beauty, it was memory, the distilled essence of tenderness and divine order, bottled in the simplest form of purity known to humankind. 10. The alabaster masks, faces of the moon. In the cool shadow of the palace walls, women of nobility prepared their nightly ritual, the alabaster mask. Made from powdered limestone and milk, sometimes mixed with honey or crushed pearl, it was smooth, cold, and white as the moon's reflection on the Nile. When applied, it clung to the skin like cool silk, drying into a pale shell that hid the face beneath a ghostly calm. The scent was faint, mineral and sweet, like rain on marble. As the mask hardened, it seemed to draw the impurities out, purifying not only the skin but the spirit. Some whispered that it was inspired by the goddess Isis herself, who once used moonlight to heal her grief. Others claimed that Pharaoh's wives used it to preserve their youth, believing the whiteness symbolized eternity, untouched, unchanging, divine. Removing the mask was a slow, almost sacred act. Beneath it, the skin emerged soft, gleaming, reborn. For a moment, reflected in polished bronze, the woman saw not herself but something more, an echo of divinity, a vision of serenity that seemed eternal. The alabaster mask was not just a beauty ritual, it was a silent prayer, a dialogue between the human and the celestial. And when morning came, she would rise with the sun, her face radiant, as though she carried a fragment of the moon within her. 11. The honey wax ritual, golden flesh of the gods. The scent of beeswax filled the chambers of the royal bathhouse, sweet, thick, and warm like melted sunlight. In the soft flicker of oil lamps, attendants prepared the sacred honey mixture, a potion of beauty known only to the upper ranks of Egyptian women. They melted golden honey with beeswax and lotus oil, stirring it slowly until it gleamed like liquid amber. When poured upon the skin, it spread in smooth ribbons, sticky and comforting, its warmth sinking deep into the flesh. The honey drew out impurities, the wax sealed the pores, and together they formed a second skin, the golden flesh of the gods, as it was called in temple whispers. The ritual was both painful and divine. Once cooled, the wax was pulled away, removing every imperfection, every shadow of the mortal. Some said this act was an imitation of Isis herself, who once gathered the shattered pieces of Osiris and restored him with honey. In the quiet after the wax was stripped away, the women sat glowing in torchlight, their skin glistening, smooth as polished gold. The fragrance of honey lingered like a blessing, a memory of the sun, a promise of immortality. Even after centuries, archaeologists found traces of beeswax in alabaster jars buried beside queens. For the Egyptians, honey was more than sweetness, it was sacred substance, sunlight made solid, capable of preserving life itself. 12. The aloe of immortality, tears of the desert. In the dry silence of Egypt's southern sands, where the wind carries whispers of eternity, there grows a plant unlike any other, thick, green, its flesh filled with a cool, clear gel. Aloe. Its leaves were heavy with moisture, a miracle of life amid desolation. When cut, the gel shone like liquid glass, slick and cold to the touch, with a faint scent of rain and earth. Egyptian healers called it the plant of immortality. They used it to heal burns, calm fevers, and keep the skin young and unbroken beneath the wrath of the desert sun. Queens applied it nightly to their faces and hands, believing it captured the essence of renewal, a promise that time itself could be softened. The story said that Nefertiti, the queen whose beauty became legend, used aloe mixed with milk and rose oil, creating a potion that shimmered like dew in morning light. It cooled her skin and lent her a radiance so otherworldly that poets described her as the dawn made flesh. The plant's power was not merely physical, it was spiritual. It symbolized rebirth, the idea that beauty, like life, could begin again after every fall. To touch its gel was to touch the breath of the gods, the silent pulse that sustained creation itself. Even in tombs thousands of years old, traces of aloe were found beside mummified skin, proof that its promise of eternity was taken literally, believed with every heartbeat of the ancient world. 13. The sacred incense, breath of the soul. When twilight fell over Thebes, and the air turned violet with dusk, the priestesses of Hathor would begin their evening ritual. In small clay burners, they placed pellets of frankincense and myrrh, ancient resins gathered from the far deserts. As the fire kissed them, smoke curled upward in soft spirals, fragrant and sweet, shimmering with gold dust. The scent filled the chamber, deep, spicy, almost intoxicating, the aroma of holiness itself. The women closed their eyes and passed their faces through the smoke, letting it cleanse their skin and spirit alike. It was said that the smoke carried away all impurities, envy, sorrow, aging itself. For in Egypt, beauty and purity were the same. The incense did not merely perfume, it consecrated. In temple carvings, goddesses were shown enveloped in those same veils of smoke, their features softened, eternal. The air itself became alive, whispering with the unseen presence of divinity. Even the pharaohs used incense as their invisible crown, believing that those who smelled divine could not die forgotten. When the smoke finally faded, it left behind a faint shimmer of resin on the skin, like a soft blessing from the unseen world. To the Egyptians, beauty was not painted, it was breathed, carried by the wind, remembered by the soul. And in that fading perfume, one could still sense the heartbeat of the gods. 14. The almond oil elixir, the liquid silk of the Nile. There were mornings along the Nile when the first light touched the water, and it gleamed like liquid silver. From the groves near Memphis came the almonds, smooth, pale, and fragrant, pressed by hand until they yielded their secret treasure, a golden oil, clear and sweet, smelling faintly of sun-warmed wood and fruit. This oil was the secret of noblewomen, who used it to anoint their bodies after bathing in the river. When rubbed into the skin, it melted like silk, leaving behind a softness that glowed beneath linen garments. Physicians praised it for its healing warmth, for soothing the muscles of dancers and warriors alike. It was even used to nourish the hair, giving it a sheen that mirrored the Nile's reflection at dusk. But beyond its earthly power, almond oil carried a spiritual meaning, the symbol of awakening. Just as the almond tree was the first to bloom in spring, the oil was believed to awaken the beauty sleeping within the skin. Some priests mixed it with myrrh and offered it to Hathor, goddess of pleasure, as tribute for eternal youth. Others whispered that those who anointed themselves with almond oil before dawn could walk unseen by evil spirits. Whether myth or truth, the scent lingered, subtle, clean, divine. It was beauty without arrogance, the quiet kind that glowed from within, like the eternal river itself. 15. The sacred clay of the Nile, the earth's last gift. When the floods receded, and the Nile withdrew to its ancient bed, what remained was a gift from the gods, rich, dark clay, cool and fertile. This sacred mud, collected by women and priests alike, was more than soil, it was the pulse of Egypt itself. Thick and heavy, it carried the scent of rain and life, a whisper of eternity between the fingers. Mixed with milk or rosewater, it became a mask, soothing, purifying, and strangely alive. When spread upon the skin, it felt cold at first, then warm, as if it remembered the body's heartbeat. The clay drew out heat, exhaustion, and time, leaving behind a smoothness like river stone. It was the most humble and the most powerful of all Egyptian beauty secrets, born of earth, gifted by gods. In myths, the god Khnum, the divine potter, shaped human beings from this very clay, breathing life into their forms. To wear it upon the skin was to return to the beginning, to touch the sacred material from which life itself was molded. When the mask was washed away, the water ran dark, carrying with it every trace of weariness. The skin beneath gleamed faintly, renewed, as though the Nile had whispered its eternal secret directly into the flesh. Beauty, the Egyptians believed, was not an illusion, it was a remembrance, of the divine, the earth, and the endless cycle of rebirth.